Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 26, season 2 of the Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday evening on Facebook throughout the season. Richie's running a bit late, so I've got Paul joining me for the start of the show. Evening, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I thought you were going to say it's not Brad and Richie at all. It's Brad and not Richie. That's he's not turned up.
So I was going to talk to him about how it was another good weekend of football with a few great games and unfortunately a Warriors loss and what he thought of the round, but he's not here. So what did you think of the round that you didn't watch?
No, that's very true. I didn't watch it, so I didn't think much of it. Clearly, against of all the teams to lose, the Broncos seriously down in 14th place. That's a bit shocking, really, by the Warriors, I think. And look, mathematically they can still make the 8, but they've made it a little bit more harder to them, haven't they?
That's the Warriors way. And hey, Thomas, good to hear from you. It's the Broncos team. The Broncos team was it's better than it was. The team that got down there, they almost beat the Rabbitohs. Not the Rabbitohs. Almost beat the Roosters the week before, who are now a top 4 team. So, they're playing better than what their position is at the moment. And the Warriors, unfortunately, were just the team that had to face them when Anthony Milford decided to play for the first time in a couple of years. Murphy's Law. But we'll cover that more when we get to the end. So while we're here live on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m., you can also catch our show on the podcast at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to be covering everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of the round 23 matches, and our picks. We'll then stop and answer some questions from all of you before going into a preview of round 24 and making our picks. And hopefully, time pending, do a quick recap of the Super League. I see Simon and Nigel are in. Hey, guys. And is Richard okay? He is. He's just late. These Wellingtonians, they work on their own clock down there. So
here I am battling through, having had my COVID jab today, and he can't even make it on. Jeez. Hey Mark,
it's shocking. Yeah, hey Mark. He'll join us as soon as he can, I'm sure. But we may as well just go straight into the top stories of the week, and I may as well just ramble on, and you can give me input where you see fit. So I might go into some that are a bit more discussion-y that you might come to go with. We've got Josh Dugan got himself in a bit of strife for breaching COVID during the week. He got caught with one of his mates doing a little bit of a drive around. Got caught, I think, twice on the same night, driving around with the same mate. We haven't seen too much of it from the Union boys who you follow, but what is your take with how everything is in Australia and New Zealand right now, with people still deciding to breach COVID protocols?
I mean, there was some excuses early on where you're like, I'm not quite sure what I'm exactly allowed to do or not allowed to do and this kind of stuff. But by now, you know what you're allowed to do and what you're not. And you're just stupid. I mean, it's like when you see people around wearing masks and they don't cover their nose. It's like, hello, if you don't know by now how to wear a bloody mask, then you're really in trouble, aren't you? It's just stupid, isn't it? I mean, and then to get caught once and to continue and not go home is even more stupid. So yeah, it's the kind of level. It's the problem is he's one of these people who just has got enough talent that people don't say no to him. And that's
I think his 9 lives are slowly disappearing. See, so it doesn't even know mates get you in trouble. Dugan's had quite a track record for not being the brightest. And unfortunately, it just seems to be another one. Kind of goes on to my next 2 news stories too, which is good. Curtis Scott has been released from the Raiders effective immediately after constant off-field dramas. We've covered it before, but earlier a few seasons back, he was basically put on suspension for assaulting a police officer. That came out that it wasn't the case. He was inebriated and sleeping under a tree, and he got pushed by the cop to wake him up, and he kind of pushed him back, and that was what they deemed. So he got past with that one, but he had a bit of a skirmish in a bar a few months back, and it's basically just the straw that broke the camel's back. So I kind of put him in the same situation as Dugan, where there's a talented footballer, but there's just obviously personal demons, I guess is probably the polite way to say it, that just keep getting in the way. And it's not a good look. And I know you love to harp on about the intellect level of league players, and we keep trying to help you out there.
You just wonder, at what point do clubs realise that they have to basically get minders for the idiots that are on their teams, right? If they're too good not to drop them, then find someone who looks after them so they don't get dropped. I mean, apparently Aerosmith, when they signed one of their a record deal, part of the record deal was they had a minder that basically made sure they didn't take too many drugs and got to bed on time or vaguely on time, and he gave them enough of a leash to enjoy themselves, but basically kept them from taking too many drugs and killing themselves. They kind of need, it sounds like they need a couple of minders like that looking after some of these league boys, and just say, well, if you want this contract, then this guy basically follows you around 24/7 so that you don't do stupid things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Simon might be able to comment as a Raiders fan. How big a loss is Curtis Scott, do you think, Simon, to the Raiders? I think they kind of dodged a bullet. I think he's too much hassle for what he delivers, in my opinion, but I'm not a Raiders fan. So I'll leave that for you to answer.
So Simon does make the point that Ali Williams was supposed to be James O'Connor's minder in Paris, and then that basically meant that Ali Williams bought the drugs for James O'Connor, who stood outside the car.
I don't know if you ever want Ali Williams to be a minder of anyone. I feel like he needs a minder himself. But that will take me to the last of my little news stories about leagueies acting out. Adam Elliott from the Bulldogs was caught in the toilets with NRLW star Millie Boyle. Not the first time he's been in strife, particularly with teammates' partners. This was really a question for Richie, so I don't know how you're going to answer it, but is Curtis Scott punishment in terms of him getting his contract ripped up on the cards after like 3 or 4 of these misdemeanors? So I guess that goes back to your minder, like how far can you go?
Well, yeah, exactly. And look, I think as soon as you start upsetting the team environment, which sleeping with teammates' wives is going to do so, then you've gone too far, really. So that's going to be a problem. I don't know the marital status of the lady he was caught with this time and what his status is. But
I don't know his status, but I believe she is single. But yeah, it sounds like they were just doing a bit of kissy face in the restrooms so they would get away from the team. But yeah,
look, if they're both single, fine. Nothing wrong with it. But yeah, if you're disrupting the environment of the team with other teammates' wives, you've gone straight away.
Yeah,
you can't have that disharmony there. Simon's come back to you about the Canberra player.
Yeah, so Simon said he's a problem player, but the problem is Canberra have a struggle attracting players into the area. Yeah, that's true. They do struggle. But yeah, I think they did themselves a great service when they got rid of players like Josh Dugan all those years ago and Blake Ferguson. They saw problem players and got rid of them as such. So it might be the case they might not find the best players on the planet, but find ones that fit with what you want to do and fit the direction you want your club to be in. I think is probably the best way of saying it there. It's if you have one or two bad players in there that spoil the apple cart, it just and you forgot Tokani. Tokani was a problem child that they had to get rid of as well. So just all these Australian boys. I don't know what's going on.
As Simon said, look, you make that point there. It's about what do you want the team to be like? The Bulldogs apparently was a family club, and then it's sort of descended into not being a family club. But you find out what is your culture, and that's what you run with, basically. So, that's what Canberra are going to decide. Is their culture going to be bad boys off the on and off the pitch? Well, hey, that can work sometimes for some teams.
Yeah, definitely. And two, they kind of go with the Broncos. So at the moment, Alex Glenn has announced his retirement at the end of the season. He's been a great player for the Broncos for many years. So I don't really have too much to add to that yet. But just good luck to him wherever he wants to go on to. And the next bit was a bit of a talking point. You can jump in on this one, I think. But so Broncos are rumoured to be interested in luring Reece Walsh back to the club. I've read the articles. There was a million articles that came out. And it was basically they've said when he is off contract with the Warriors, they'd like to bring him back. And I kind of thought it was no shit, Sherlock. I think when he comes off contract, there's going to be more than just the Warriors and Broncos interested in him. So I put it down as rubbish journalism, and I think Richie's here now, so we can ask him as well what he thinks of that, if it is rubbish journalism and just speculation, or just something that everyone knows.
To me, clickbait, as you say, everyone knows that, he is going to be in demand. So, evening, Richie. How you doing?
Good. It's rubbish journalism.
Well, yeah. What I mean by rubbish journalism is the clickbait thing. It's kind of, we all know that the Broncos will want to have a go at getting him. I know they had some thoughts in there about potentially getting him out of his contract early. I don't see the Warriors being. I know the Warriors have let players go early, but I don't think he's one that they're going to do. And I can't speak for Reece himself. Honestly, he's got my number blocked. But I don't know how I would feel about wanting to go back to a club that was willing to let me go in the first place.
Yeah, 100%. You never know. It's his childhood club, and the club he's been, he's grown up in Queensland, and that's the club he's loved and supported his whole life. So, but we're the club that's giving him his NRL start, and if you're a fanboys like us and drool over his Instagram like I do, you can see he looks pretty happy, and he's made some good friends here.
Yeah, I think he's got quite a nice little bromance starting with Chanel. So,
he does. Twins.
I think that, and the chance to play with Sean Johnson, I think, if they start humming, like when Sean arrives next year, if they start playing really well together, I don't see him wanting to leave. But we don't know till it happens, and he'll be on. And like Paul said in the background, if it's his childhood team, then it'll come up every time his contract is being discussed, and it will. I think the Warriors will have to fight to keep him. Like many of those big name players or those potential superstars, everyone wants to nab them. So you have to fight to keep them. They've still got a bit of money in the cap when that time comes around. So I think they will be okay, and all they can do is make the environment as good as it is, make it as enjoyable, make it successful, and then hopefully you keep hold of him. But before I go on to the rest of the news, while you were, dicking around and not turning up on time, I covered with Paul, we won't go into it in too depth, but I was just talking about Josh Dugan, Curtis Scott, and Adam Elliott's off-field dramas this week.
The Naughty Boys.
And, the Naughty Boys, just while we're waiting for everyone to catch up, just your thoughts.
You want Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts. All three of those guys, not their first rodeo, is it?
No.
Yeah. So, and I've seen Curtis Scott put out a Instagram post, basically saying he doesn't feel like he's been treated very well, and he's gone to the club citing mental health issues, and feels like the club's sort of hasn't done him any favors. But with a track record like him, and also Dugan, I mean, how many times have we seen Dugan do things that, things that his club would frown upon? So, and Adam Elliott, he if it's not somebody in his teammate that he's in his team that he's, there's been rumors of him doing things with teammates' wives, and now this, at a restaurant with one of the players from one of the women's league, I believe.
Millie Boyle.
It's not. Yeah, it's no surprise that these guys are popping up again. They've got track records. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
just more running the game of rugby league, bringing it into disrepute and giving it its fine reputation.
It is something that they are very good at doing, unfortunately. Yeah. Then I've got some more little news. We got rumors swirling. It's pure speculation right now, but the new Brisbane club, when they finally get announced, there's been rumors that they'll be throwing big money at Cameron Munster to be their marquee signing. Cameron Munster's kind of always said he would like to go back to Brisbane. That's where he's from. So it's no big surprise. But I guess, would he be the player as a marquee, like a new club, the marquee player you would want to bring in? If you could kind of pick anyone to take a stab at, would it be Munster?
If you're looking at somebody who's realistic, yeah. I mean, he's probably a realistic target. I mean, he's already done good things in Melbourne, won premierships, and he's still one of the top players in the game. He might not. He's had patches this year where he's been a bit quiet, and Origin he was a bit quiet, but he's really coming into his own the last few weeks for sure. And on his day, as good as anybody. So if you're looking for somebody to build a club around, he'd be a good realistic target for them.
Yeah, and we've got quite some time before they actually announce who the Brisbane team will actually be. So we'll keep our ears to the ground on that. But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think the key thing you said there was realistic. It's not like you're going to be able to go and say, Nathan Cleary, we want you. Yeah. A guy like Cleary wouldn't be jumping. So I think out of everyone, the fact that he is a guy that wants to go back to Brisbane kind of helps. And so it's no surprise. And I still feel like when Craig Bellamy finally hangs up his whistle, you'll probably see a lot of those players kind of shift away from the Storm. Feel like he's kind of that glue, and once he's not there, they might feel like they'll go out on their own. And Simon's agreed, saying Cameron Munster will be a great signing for the new Brisbane team.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And so the last little bits of news I've got there, kind of quick. Adam Dewey has a partial ACL tear and will miss the final 2 games of the season for the Tigers, which is a massive loss for the Tigers. Jaden Campbell from the Titans has re-signed until the end of 2024. Great news for them. He's a great little talent, and there were a lot of clubs sniffing around his contract status to try to lure him away. I feel that he wouldn't have left the Titans anyway due to the connection his dad had there. So I feel like they were in the driver's seat to make sure they got him, but it's all signed, sealed, and delivered now. So great news for the Titans. And the last bit, Leeson Armel has announced that he's not intending to retire at the end of the season and is looking for a new club next year, as the Warriors haven't offered him a contract. Do you see many teams interested in signing him with the way the game has changed? I feel like he's kind of the old mold of front rower that's kind of falling out with how the new game is played.
Yeah, perhaps you're right. I know the game is moving towards a more mobile sort of mobile forward that is a bit quicker on the feet, perhaps to suit the speed of the game. But for me, Leeson still has a bit to offer. Whenever he's had minutes this year, and the whole first portion of the season, he had minutes off the bench, and his defense is still right up there. If you look at his stats, he makes plenty of tackles for the minutes he plays, and also very few misses. So,
yeah,
I don't think the speed of the game's troubling him in that aspect. He might not be a big meter reader like in Fanua Blake or Payne Haas, but I think he still has a fair bit to offer. Whether that's here or in the Super League, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, he's up until last year where it was stop-start and he left to go back to New Zealand early. He was averaging 100 meters a game.
Yeah,
not only for the Warriors, but for the other teams he was playing for as well, with the Cowboys and the Dragons. So you know what you're going to get from him, which I think is handy. And Mark's put here, Broncos probably the only team, and yeah, I think he could do quite well there if you had him and Payne Haas there to help set a platform for Adam Reynolds. I think that's potentially a good spot for him. Hopefully someone does pick him up. I don't like seeing players wanting to play on and just have everyone say we're not interested, and then they kind of fall away. I like seeing players go out on their own terms, because unfortunately it is quite rare for every player to be able to go out the way they want to go. So I have my fingers crossed for him that he gets a new club next year. That's really all the news I had there. So we may as well go straight into the round 3 review.
Sounds good.
Starting with the Storm defeating the Titans 34-20. The 19th win in a row for the Storm, which sees them equal the all-time record with, I believe it's the 1975 Eastern Suburbs team. So a great effort from them there.
Absolutely.
What did you think of this game before I keep waffling on?
Well, at this point of the week, I was watching it very much with my, with my Warriors fan glasses on, seeing what implications it would have on us. Yeah. And the Titans had me worried there for a while. They made a nice start, and ex-Warrior Paddy Herbert causing some havoc down the right-hand side there. He put a lovely fend on the Storm centre to set up some play in the corner for their opening points, and they look very threatening. And I thought Jaden Campbell looked threatening whenever he sort of came into the game. But it's the Melbourne Storm, The longer I went on, the more I thought, they're coming into this game. They clawed their way back and eventually found their way to win, as they do. Even if they're not putting teams to the sword, they can arm wrestle as well.
Yeah, and they rested a few players, I think, as well. The Storm, but they. It was the first time since round 8 that Melbourne were trailing at halftime. That was against the Sharks, and just like the Sharks game, after halftime, they clicked into gear and just started piling on points. And so it's, I guess, the Storm just know how to win, but I guess it shows you that it doesn't matter if they're behind. They're always going to take it on themselves to get the job done. And Mark said in his average first half from the Storm. I agree. The first half wasn't great from them, but they're that type of team that once they decide that it's time to play, they are hard to stop, which is what we saw here. They Cameron Munster, I thought, stood out in the second half, particularly.
Absolutely.
And
I think
Ryan Pappenhausen played quite well for the first time since his injury.
I think Cam Munster did step up really well, and I think too. Let's not forget Storm were missing Jerome Hughes, so Cam Munster took it upon himself in that second half. But Jerome Hughes I think that shows that Jerome Hughes does play a big part in the Storm attack. He's really come a long way this year, in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and from the Titans aspect, they had this game in reach, but I think they just made too many silly errors, which is probably going to be a theme throughout the rest of this review for the other games. But against a team like the Storm, you can't give up easy ball. It's kind of cliche because it sounds so simple. If you give up ball against a really good team, you're going to be in trouble. But I think not only Herbert and Campbell, Greg Marzu, which I always get his name wrong, I thought he was strong again, and it's actually come up at the same time because Mark's in my head. So we'll go with Mark's comment and what I was about to say. But Fafita was too quiet. I think he's a bully. He'll go out there and look like a John Olomu-like player running over everybody when you're playing like the little teams, and when you go up against these top tier guys where he should be proving what he's worth, he disappears. Which we won't go too far into it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mark's reading our minds. Yeah, I was going to say I was going to talk to Brad a little bit about Fafita later on. So Mark's reading our minds there.
We'll stop the Fafita talk there. But Simon said, I think I was wrong about what I thought at the start of the year when I thought the Titans would make the 8. I don't think it's likely to happen. Yeah. At the start of the year, I had Titans and Warriors hitting that 7 and 8 mark with teams like the Knights and Sharks falling out. So I was off the mark too. I put too much emphasis on what David Fafita would bring to the team, and he has proven me wrong, which is an ongoing trend on this show. So it's good to see. I still don't know what I'm talking about. But before we move on to the Raiders Eagles game, anything else you want to add about the Storm Titans?
No, not really. It kind of went the way I expected. I don't know about you, Brad, but I thought the Titans actually put up more of a fight than I thought they would, but it's probably down to Jerome Hughes being out, so they lost a pretty vital cog in their spine there, which, maybe took away some of the Storm's fluidity.
Yeah, it went how I thought too. I was so close. I was like this close to getting a third week in a row going 8 from 8 with my picks. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I expected this one. And just like I expected the next game with Manly defeating the Raiders. Must say, after we made our picks and we picked Manly, when Tommy Turbo was ruled out, I was really worried. Yeah, can you say that word again, Richie?
I'm a real wordsmith, Paul. I keep throwing out big words, probably off air more than on air. Just being humble.
But yeah, without Tommy Turbo, I was really concerned about Manly doing well here. But they held firm, a bit like the Melbourne approach, where they kind of knew what they needed to do and they got the job done. But the Raiders looked better in the first half, as I've said many times this year. They were leading 12-0 at the break, and I was really concerned. And then I'd say it might be like the 6th or 7th game this year where they've had a double-digit lead and let it slip, which is a huge concern for the Raiders. Manly side of things, Ruben Garrick was strong yet again. He got a hat-trick. I think the only highlight I had really for the Raiders was Chance. I think Chance looked good coming off the bench. He scored in the final minute to give them a chance. They were their only, see what I did there? Wordsmith too. He got them to within the 1 because of a field goal that Dale Cherry Evans had done earlier. And then they went for a 2-point field goal and missed. Not the last time this week. We're going to talk about that. But I thought it was a good game to watch. I didn't expect the Raiders to do well, but I feel like they let themselves down with the kicking game. They just couldn't keep the pressure on Manly. I think if their kicking was a bit more fluid, I think there was 3 or 4 times they kicked too deep and gave Manly 7 tackle sets. Mm-hmm. And Moses Sully was massive. He ran for 200 meters, I believe it was. But after he was rewarded for that awesome performance by being dropped this week. So that's always good to know that you can play the game of your life and then get told, oh, well, the guy you replaced is back. So you're gone. Which is disappointing for him. I know he's been frustrated. And Simon's also said that's why some people call the Raiders the faders. Yeah, it's a worrying trend for them. And Mark's also said he loves Manly's two edge back rowers and Schuster and Richard. Do you want to say the other name?
Olakauatu.
There we go.
Yeah, I was going to talk about him too because he was huge and he had a try taken off him in the first half, which I thought was a try, but then he got one back in the second half. But he was huge and he has been huge most of the year. So good signs for Manly's forward pack with him. Schuster's been impressive this year. He has
all the time too. I feel like he has been great every game he's played, and unfortunately he got injured, so he missed some games. But they've just got dangerous players all over the place, and it's good to see them starting to win games without Tommy Turbo. I think they said this was like the fourth game this year they've won without him. When you go back to the start of the year, it was basically if Tommy wasn't playing, they weren't winning. So they're not going to go out there and put 50, 60 points like they do when he's out there. But as long as you're coming back with a victory, especially at the back end of the season, I think it's good for them. And they're still a smoky for me to go all the way, especially with Tommy coming back this week. But that takes us to the last game on Friday, which was the Panthers defeating the Rabbitohs. This was the only game we had different this week.
It was looking good for me.
You foolishly thought the Rabbitohs were going to beat the Panthers here. The Rabbits scored all their points from this game in the first 22 minutes of the game, and yes, had me worried. And I'm sure I had you sitting there quite confident that you were going to edge one back on me.
Yeah, I was crying.
But then the Panthers kicked into gear and they scored 25 unanswered points to get the win. I think the difference here was Nathan Cleary once again. I think his kicking game was on point. He makes such a difference to this Panthers attack, and he was really punishing his old teammate, Josh Mansell, with bombs all night until Mansell went off injured, unfortunately. But Paul Momorowski, I think, played quite well for them. He got switched out to the wing, and I think he really stood up once he got moved out to the wing. But it was kind of all the switch. Dylan Edwards went off with a head knock.
Yeah.
You saw Crichton go back to fullback, and I think it elevated Crichton as well. And I think the Panthers are still off pace compared to the likes of Melbourne, but they're building at the right time. Instead of last year where we saw they were kind of steamrolling to the finals, now they're getting these tougher matches, which I think is going to be better for them long term when they get into the nitty gritty of playoffs football. They might be a bit more hardened to it compared to last year. I still don't have them picked to win it, but they're looking good. And the Rabbitohs, I thought they just started well and then couldn't keep up with Penrith. Reynolds nailed a hell of a 40-20. It was kind of what you saw everywhere in replays. It was a very good kick. And before I let you go on, we may as well address the elephant in the room about the penalty count. The Rabbits are on the back of a 11-2 penalty count. It's received a lot of attention, and I thought they were hard done by in some cases. And it's not a thug life thing, Paul. It's not thugs. And I think it took some of the sheen off the match. I think some people look back at it and go, well, the Panthers only looked as good as they did because they were helped by the refs. But I'm not going to go as far and say the ref cost the Rabbitohs the match, but they didn't help. So I know you're going to defend the Rabbitohs here because you picked them. So you tell me why the refs screwed them out of this, Richie.
I'm glad you brought it up, Brad, because if you didn't know I was going to, and that would have just made me look like I was sour grapes about my pick being wrong. But I believe it was Mr. Grant Atkins. He wasn't the kindest to the Rabbitohs and was calling a few really nitpicky penalties. I don't think it was just him. I think the bunker was intervening on a couple of those as well. So it's a really weird one. You can't tell me that they were that much more ill-disciplined than the Panthers. But
no.
Yeah, it didn't appear to me anyway. I think some of those look pretty nitpicky. But credit to the Panthers. You brought him up, Momorowski, set up a couple of wonderful tries off a couple of really, really flashy kicks. Crichton, once he moved back to fullback, looked really dangerous, and Cleary in his second game back, he looks like he's just starting to get back into things. So it all bodes well for the Panthers. But for the Rabbitohs, I don't think it did their chances any harm. You know, the last time they played a team up this high on the ladder, it didn't go too well for them. And I think you take away that penalty count, and they've really, I think they didn't do their finals chances any harm in my eyes. I think if they meet a team like this, in the finals and have a even share of the ball, and that the refs not penalising them out of the game, I think that they can beat anybody on their day.
Yeah, definitely. When you think earlier in the season where these two teams played each other, they got 50 points put on them by the Panthers. So it's shown how much better they've gotten now that they seem to be in sync. And once you get into that finals footy and it's the one-off games, I think that they'll be primed to swoop. Have a bit more of an even penalty count, and they could easily, I don't want to say upset, but I guess you can, because it's the Panthers. It's one of the top two teams, so if they beat them in the finals, it would be classed as an upset. But I also wouldn't be surprised. That's why I really only have Melbourne, Penrith, Rabbitohs, and Manly as ones that potentially could win the competition. They're the only four teams, because I can see the Rabbitohs or Manly on their day in a one-off game beating Melbourne or Penrith in like a semi-type scenario. So, I think they would have learnt a lot from this game, and next time they face each other, I think it will be a lot more competitive. But on the opposite side of competitive, we had the first game on Saturday, which was the Sharks wiping the floor with the Tigers, 50-20. Not really much to say, I think, with this game. Sharks had 9 tries to the Tigers 4. Renato Mulatalo scored a double, was on the way to scoring a hat-trick before he gave the ball up
he did.
to Luke Metcalf to get Luke Metcalf's first try in the NRL. Unfortunately, he suffered a broken jaw, which is, I believe they've confirmed that it's ruled him out for the rest of the season, which is a huge blow for the Sharks. But I think that the Sharks look dangerous at times. There's that asterisk, though, because they were playing the Tigers, who struggle at the best of times. And the only highlight I had, so Mark's commented, what a bludger of a game. It was probably one of the least enjoyable ones to watch. And the only thing I could really say for the Tigers is they attempted a comeback where they scored 3 tries in 10 minutes, including another try to Ken Mamalo. But they just couldn't build momentum on the back of that and just fell back into sitting under the goalpost as the Sharks scored tries. So that's all I really had to say. It was kind of not a great performance by the Tigers, and a performance that the Sharks should have done against a team like the Tigers. What did you think about it?
You summed it up pretty well, Brad. I didn't think they'd go up. Yeah, I know. You leave me with very little to say. I just need to turn up and add my 5 cents. Is great. But, I didn't think the Tigers would get put to the sword that badly with their season. You know, it was hanging by a thread, but it was still on the line. They still had that mathematical chance like we did. But, it just sums up the Tigers' season for me. You know, everything's on the line and they get 50 put on them. I thought Will Kennedy was really good again. I think he's been fantastic for them all year for the Sharks.
Yeah.
And the young fellas in the team too that you mentioned, Luke Metcalf and Braden Trindle, had a really good game. But yeah, for me, summing up this game, just how poor the Tigers were. If they still had a mathematical chance, I think that's well and truly put to bed now. I think they'll be lucky to get their favourite 9th.
Yeah. Disappointing for them and their fans. And yeah, the Tigers doco, it is going to be interesting. It's really not the best season for the Tigers to have people following them because they haven't been that great. They've had their glimpses where they've been competitive or they've got an upset win, but a lot of the time it's been heavy defeats. So yeah, not the best time to be following them around, but it will be interesting watching it. To see how many times Maguire can break the record for F-bombs on television. But yeah, it's like listening to me watching a Warriors game at home.
Me too.
That takes us to the next game on Saturday, which was the Knights defeating the Bulldogs 22-16. Another close match here. Not really used to seeing it, but the Bulldogs are trying to fight here, which is good to see for Bulldogs fans. But I thought Jake Clifford had probably his best outing in a Knights jersey since jumping mid-season. He scored a try, set up 2 others, and it was a win that should cement the Knights a top 8 spot. And yeah, I think the difference was the combination of Clifford and Mitchell Pearce. That their halves combination really set the platform for the back line. And that was really the difference here. The Bulldogs continue to look like they have no direction at all. They're kind of a similar situation to what we're seeing with the Warriors, where it seems like the halves change every week. So there's really not a time to build a partnership. And I think it hurts them. And just like I said earlier with the Titans, the Bulldogs let themselves down with errors. They made 5 errors in the first half, including a Bond try. And they did start the second half better, but the Knights just had too much class in comparison. But if I want to put an optimist hat on, which I have to do so often as a Warriors fan, if the Bulldogs can keep this level of effort that they showed in this game, combined with the new signings they have next year, they should definitely find themselves out of wooden spoon contention. I'm not ready to say they're a top 8 side by any means, but I definitely think they should be out of that bottom 2 that they've kind of seen themselves in for, it feels like the last, I don't know accurately how many, but it feels like years now. So what did you think about this game?
Again, Brad summed up beautifully, but
I'll let you start the next one so you can actually talk.
No, you're all good, mate. I don't think this performance from the Knights will have too many. That's 4 on the bounce for them, 4 on the trot, so that's a positive. And now they're all but home and hosed to take out 7th or 8th, because I think they're sitting in 7th now, I believe, and they've got a couple points lead over 8th. But I don't think this is going to have too many teams. There you go. Yeah. So they're 2 points ahead of Cronulla. I think it's 2 or 4. I can't quite make that out. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I don't think they're going to have too many teams in the top 8 shaking their boots. It's 4. Yeah. So they do have a couple of wins spread there. But they're not. I don't think they're going to have too many teams in the top 8 worried come finals time playing the Bulldogs, and they didn't, they got the job done, but it was shaky there at times. I thought Mitch Barnett for the Knights was really good, and he set up a highlight reel try, scooping a ball back from what looked like it was going to go dead, and he scooped it back for Saifidi to score. But he's all effort, and he sort of, he's a workhorse for them and makes a big difference. But I didn't think the Knights looked, they didn't, not just this game, but they haven't looked like a team that's going to go deep. And the Bulldogs, like you say, they put in an effort. They scored a lovely try through Jaden Ockenbaugh, which you catch that one, Brad. It was off. Yeah. He grounded it just before the dead ball line off a kick, and I think that was one of the nicer put downs of the year. But
definitely.
So Mark's saying they're going to play Para week 1 of the finals. Okay, so Para's not exactly scaring a lot of people at the moment anyway. It might actually be a good game.
Yeah, so they could win that one. We're going to talk about the Eels in the next game, but they could win that one. So they might do okay there, but I see them as a 1 or 2 and out. Two games at the most. But yeah, not that great. But they did what they needed to do to win, which is all you need to do right now. I'm sure there's a lot of teams out there that would have preferred a narrow win over a loss any day of the week. But that takes us to the next game on Saturday, which was the Eels defeating the Cowboys 32-16. The floor is yours. Go on, you talk about it.
It's almost a carbon copy of the last game in the way I'm going to sum this one up. So Para really, and I think we said it last week's show, that Para will be counting their blessings that they were coming up against the Cowboys, because they were on a bit of a skid and lost a few games on the trot after looking like a top 14 for the most of the year. So they really needed a win to get back on track, and luckily for them, they came up against the Cowboys and they got off to a nice start. The Eels, bouncing out to a lead, but again, they didn't set the world on fire, and I don't think they're going to have a lot of teams shaking in their boots. They just through errors and just inaccurate play at times and just phasing in and out of the game, they let the Cowboys stay in it pretty much right until near the end of the game. I think almost the 74th, 75th minute, and then Dylan Brown finally scored to put it out of reach. So they did what they needed to do to get one back in the win column, but just like the Knights, I don't think they're worrying anybody in the top 4 or 5 with that. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I thought, it's going to sound very disrespectful to the Cowboys, but the Eels did win by a decent margin, but I expected more out of them. I expected a bigger score against the Cowboys, because this is the Cowboys' 10th loss in a row. Losing is habit forming, and I feel like Cowboys right now would struggle to beat their reserve grade team because they're just so poor. It's horrible to see. I was very upset when Todd Payton left the Warriors to go and coach the Cowboys, but I was hoping that he would get a good performance out of the Cowboys, who have been struggling in recent times. And I don't know what he can really do to fix them. And I'm actually worried about the Cowboys next season. I think they're a wooden spoon contender, and I haven't seen enough positives out of Chad Townsend this year to believe that he will right the ship for them. They've got a winner with Peter Hiku. I think Peter Hiku will be able to do some magic for them like he's done for the Warriors, but I don't think their halves are going to be good enough. I don't think Chad and Dearden will do enough. And I saw Paul said, are the Eels hiding their special finals moves? No, they are just rubbish. They have been protected by a soft early run. They had some very easy games against some struggling teams early on, which has kind of elevated them to a status that they don't really deserve. They're falling back to where they would be right now. They're kind of a bit like the Dragons are settling outside of the 8 where they should have been. The Eels are heading towards the bottom of the 8 where they should be. And they have lost Mike Osevo, which is a big blow for them. I'm going to sound very... I don't want to say offensive to Mike Osevo, but I don't know how a strong runner like him is as soft as he is. Every time he runs it back, it looks like he gets hurt. And I'm sorry to offend any Mike Osevo fans out there, but you see it with like your Ken Mamalos, even with looking at the Warriors with Dylan Montesi-Zesniak and Marcelo Montoya. These guys are running off the back fence as hard as they can to give their team a good start. Every time he does that, he's rolling around on the ground, and that negates any momentum that his team has got from his hit up. And I don't know if he's trying to flub a penalty or if he's just literally made out of glass.
He has been known to milk a penalty.
Exactly. So he kind of needs to get out of that mindset. And if he's going to do a big run, run it hard, get up quickly, play the ball, and let your team build momentum. But on that note, Clarkson needs to step up. I know his form has dropped off the side of a cliff since he started negotiating a new deal. I don't know what he needs to do, but he needs to just step up and prove that he is worth the money he's reportedly asking for. But yeah, so it sounds like we're coming on very hard on a team that actually won here. But yeah, not really much more I can say about it. I don't think the Eels have got any chance of going anywhere in the finals, and the Cowboys need to do some serious work.
Yeah, 100%.
That takes us to the first game on Sunday with the Roosters defeating the Dragons 40-22. It's another big win here, but I'm going to admit that I was surprised the Dragons actually managed to score 4 tries here. I expected this to be a one-sided affair, and it basically was, but I think that's my Dragons bias coming out. I don't know what's happened to make me dislike the Dragons so much. It's normally Manly, and I'm all for Manly at the moment. It's a strange world we live in. For the Roosters, though, I thought James Tedesco had another blinder. He ran for 300 meters and set up 4 tries. The Roosters led 14-0, but the Dragons got themselves into the contest, scoring 3 tries. But then after that, the Roosters just started piling on the points. And after this win, they're now in the top 4 now. It's and again, the Roosters suffered more injuries. Shouldn't laugh. They've lost Adam Kieran, Dale Copley, and Nat Butcher at least for this week. To add, I think I saw somewhere on social media someone did an injured 13 versus starting 13 for the Roosters.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it looks like quite a competitive game. But yeah, the Dragons, I think they showed glimpses of what they can do on attack. I think Jaden Sullivan did quite well. He had to go into play hooker, which he's not normally accustomed to. And he offered some spark, which is something the Dragons really need. But the Dragons, in all honesty, just aren't good enough to compete against a top 6 side. I say top 6 because the Roosters, I'm not sure if they're going to be a top 4 team for very long. But yeah, and but the Roosters, 100% full credit needs to go to them for currently sitting in the top 4 with all the injuries they have. What did you think? Good.
Yeah, the Dragons, I think they're going to be a lot better next year once you add in Jaden Sewer and George Burgess, and they've got a couple more big forwards there. Brad's shaking his head because I don't think so, Brad. I think you're just being harsh on them. But they've actually got. You can see sprouts there. I think next year they've got some young people coming through that look like good uns, like the junior Amone that I was speaking about last week. Looks like a good talent, but again, this game I was watching with my Warriors glasses on, and the implications on us. Which I did for most of these with us being such a late game in the week. And, they were hanging in there for a while, and I was getting a bit worried. But then when Tedesco decides he wants to pile it on, he piles it on. He's been magnificent this year. I think a lot of what the Roosters are doing right now, they can thank Teddy for, because it seems like the whole roster's been crumbling around him, and he's just held them together and just keeps delivering try assists, bunch of meters, line break assists. So, I think he's done a magnificent job of holding them together, given what's happened with their roster this year. And you have to say right now, looking at how they're traveling, they deserve to be in that top 4 more than Parramatta.
Oh, 100%, yeah. I put them in that category where I don't think they're going to go deep in the playoffs just due to the amount of injuries they have. But yeah, 100% they need to be above Parramatta, especially with the adversity they've faced. I know they have the biggest salary cap on the planet, and they can basically buy anyone that they want. But they've lost a lot of those guys that they are paying under the table. So you don't want to say karma's hitting them there, but yeah, they can still buy the entire Warriors roster with what they've got left in the cap, and they'll come back once they got all their players. They'll continue to be what they always are, which is a competitive title contender. I don't see it happening this year just due to those injuries, but yeah, I think they've done fantastic with what they've had to do this year. But that will take us to the last game, the game we've been trying to avoid talking about, but we may as well. The only game I got wrong this week in my picks with the Broncos defeating the Warriors 24-22.
So it was your fault.
It was my fault. You picked them too. So the streak's over, and I know we've all pulled out the whiteboards and the abacuses and our charts, and the Warriors can still make the 8. But personally, I already said I didn't think they were going to make the 8. But I'm sticking a fork in it because I just don't see it happening. There's too much relying on some teams, and I don't think I'm confident enough in getting wins that we need them to. If it happens, I will be very happy, but I just don't see it. Before I waffle on about this performance, what did you think of the game?
Before I go on to the game, I want to agree with you completely, Brad. I was almost at this point already, but I think from with the rest of the games, I'm going to take anything as a bonus if we get anywhere near the 8 and all the stars align, and I'll take that as a bonus. But I honestly don't believe that we deserve to make the 8, given the amount of close losses we've had this year to teams we probably should be beating, and probably on our best day we would, but through bad luck and injuries and suspensions, it just hasn't happened. So, and dropping close games to the Cowboys and 1-point games against Manly, and losing to the Knights, I think twice.
Tigers
in close games. And the Sharks, dropping in a game against the Sharks, which we should have won. So, you could rattle off at least a half dozen just off the top of your head, which would have had us very competitive in the top 6 probably. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Onto the game, tough one to swallow. I thought we were competitive, and it shows because we outscored them 5-4. Just goal kicking let us down a wee bit. But I thought Brisbane were good value for their win, despite being outscored in the try department. I thought they played really well. I got to give a lot of credit to Payne Haas, who had a big game rumbling up the middle, and we had a real hard time containing him. And Milford, I think I was texting you during the game, and looked like Milford's probably he's chosen to have his best game in about 5 years against us when our season's on the line, and he was in everything.
I think with the Milford thing, I think all the pressure's off. He's leaving. Broncos no one's expecting the Broncos to do well, so there is literally no pressure on Milford anymore. And it's just letting him enjoy his football again, which it's great to see, but I would have liked it to be a week later than it was. But I think both teams were very lucky at times in this game. I think Albert Kelly's try was just a fluke, lucky bounce. It went the right way. The Warriors were lucky that Henry Perinara was in the bunker and gave Ewan Aiken his try, because I didn't see it as a try myself. I thought I saw Coates' hand. So I think the Warriors were lucky there. But there were also times for both teams. I thought the reffing and the bunker were poor in this game. I thought the commentators were poor as well. I was getting very frustrated at the start where they couldn't tell the difference between Reece Walsh and Chanel Harris-Tavita. That's got nothing to do with the game, but just these guys get paid to commentate on the game. They should at least know who's playing. Admittedly, they do look very similar at the moment. That's lockdown haircuts for you. But I thought, I was worried about this game with how good Broncos played against Roosters last week. So I was always
they're looking
nervous.
a lot better, aren't they? They've improved a heck of a lot from the start of the year. They have, and they even if if they're losing, they're troubling some good teams at the moment. Like they took the Roosters to the wire and probably should have beat them if not for some contentious reffing. So I was worried too. And it goes to show. I don't want to put anything on Reece Walsh too. Missing kicks.
Right.
If anything, I was super.
I'm about to start.
All right. Well, let me get my piece in then, because I don't want to put anything on him. I think I actually like it that a young man that age, 19 years old, wants those moments and wants to be kicking for games and wants the ball 40 meters out with the game on the line to try and put a field goal through. So I think he'll learn from that and it'll actually improve him. And I just want to give a massive rap to Peter Hiku because I think he was probably our best, and he was he had a stormer, and he scored a try and set up a beautiful try as well. And it's just a shame we're seeing him depart at the end of the year.
So when you say Reece will learn from that, you mean he'll learn to give the ball to somebody else when it's that far out?
Well, I've seen a lot of people on social media saying, we should have given it to Chanel Harris-Tavita, we should have given it to Chad Townsend or other people who have shown they can goal kick. But prior to this game, Reece Walsh has been kicking at quite a high percentage, and I just think it wasn't his day, and that happens in sport. So I don't want to put too much on him.
Yeah, so now that you've finished sucking up to him, he doesn't watch the show, so there's no point doing these. He was 1 from 5. It was a shocking night, but I'm actually, as much as I was pretending that I was about to rip into the poor kid, I actually 100% agree with you. I do question why Nathan Brown didn't say let's try someone else, because it's obviously an off night. I don't know if that was he didn't want to knock the kid's confidence, or if he was saying, no, I can do this. Just for the fact that the season was potentially on the line, in that aspect, it's great that but still stats-wise, he's still the best goal kicker in the team. I wouldn't put money on Chad Townsend nailing it from the sideline. When you think at the Sharks, Sean was doing all the conversions, basically. Yep. And Chanel is like a 70 to low 80% kicker. At the best of times, especially on the sideline. It's not like Reece was shanking them all from in front. And then with the time running out, trying to go for the 2-point field goal to tie the game up, and it wasn't far off either, unfortunately. So it is something he will learn from. And he just seems to be a kid that just keeps plugging away and wants to do what he can to help the team win. It will be interesting what happens when Sean's there with the dynamic on who's going to be the one calling for the ball in those winning situations. If it's going to be Sean, or if they're going to let Reece, or if they're going to combine and let them both. I think if they both can be that one that goes to at that time, it helps you when a team's trying to defend. They don't know which guy's going to go and try to screw their night over by getting the match winner. But yeah, overall it was disappointing. I think AFB and Infinite Blake was a monster up the middle, just like Panthers was for the Broncos.
Yep.
And if Matt Lodge was playing, the Warriors win this game. I think if we had them both out there, they would have done enough. Positive note for us is that Matt Lodge is back this week. But yeah, don't want to harp on too much about it. It was very disappointing. But I will say that with the way the Broncos played, they could throw spanners in the works in the top 8, because they could very easily win the next 2 games they've got, much like the Warriors could win the next 2 games they've got as well. Not saying that means Warriors are making the 8 or anything like that, but I think if both teams play like they did in this game and compete, and Broncos stay on the winning side and the Warriors get over that hump and get the wins, it could really make a jumble of that ladder, which will make it interesting. Which I suppose segues right into looking at the ladder now, Paul. So our picks, I got 1 game wrong. I got the Warriors-Broncos game wrong. And Richie, you got 2 wrong. You got the Rabbitohs-Panthers and the Warriors-Broncos. So I am sitting ahead now by 2 at 132 out of 176, and you're on 130 out of 176. And we've got 3 games different this week, which will make things interesting. because I think you might be on the money with some of your picks, unfortunately. But yeah, looking at the ladder there, it's basically carbon copy, bar a few switches. We've got Melbourne and Penrith still at the top, Rabbitohs and now the Roosters finishing out that top 4, Manly at 5th, Parramatta sliding down to 6, Newcastle at 7, and then that 4-point gap between them and Cronulla at 8. Then you've got basically the only 2 teams I think that have a shot now are the Titans and the Raiders. Depending how they go, they both have to play the Warriors, and I think the Warriors are going to beat both of them. So that will be interesting. And then you've got the Warriors sitting at 11th, Dragons all the way down to 12th now. When you think it doesn't feel that long ago that the Dragons were a top 4 team, and now they're down to 12. Tigers, even though they had that loss, they sit at 13. Broncos, getting away from that wooden spoon as best as they can at 14, with the Cowboys and Bulldogs sitting 15th, 16th. Unfortunately for the Bulldogs, the Cowboys did enough early in the season, so the Bulldogs can't leapfrog them and get off that wooden spoon. So it is theirs once again. But yeah, that's it for the ladder. And yeah, it'll be interesting. There's some games that will switch that around. But any questions from the audience, Paul?
Yeah, someone had one earlier. He said, when you were speaking of rubbish journalism, have you guys had a look at the NRL's website? They actually have some very good shows on their website promoting the game. So sort of, what have you guys looked at those? And what do you think about the NRL kind of skipping the middleman and owning the narrative?
I'm a fan of it. Unfortunately, a lot of the time they put up the same stuff. I think they even had an article about the Broncos wanting to bring Reece Walsh back. So they kind of dig into it too. And all the dramas with Adam Elliott, Josh Dugan, and Curtis Scott, all the information I got from that was from the NRL's website. So I'll give them credit there that they're not shying away from the negative stuff. Instead of just saying, we're going to hide that it never happened. They are at least owning it at their part. But yeah, they're not as clickbaity. They don't do a headline.
What about they kind of show the video stuff rather than necessarily the articles?
The video stuff's really good. I try to not watch it before our show because I don't want to just copy what they're saying. So I generally watch it later in the week and then go, I should have said these things. And it would have made it look like I know what I'm talking about. But I watch a lot of their shows when I can. I subscribe to them on YouTube, so I put them on and I'll watch them at work instead of working. Because work knows what comes first. It's still league. But yeah, they got it's those because they've got players that have played that have a good insight. As long as it's not Braith and Astor, I won't watch Braith. I know there might be some people here that love him, but I think we'll put the thug life out. I think he's a moron, but I listen to some of the things he says on commentary and on these things, and it doesn't seem like it's that smart. And there's players like Cooper Cronk that rub me the wrong way at the moment too. But they do have a lot of very knowledgeable guys there that explain to us as fans that haven't been there, that we have our opinions, as we say on our show, but they have actually been out there, some of them playing with the guys they're talking about. And that's right, Simon. So there's a lot of them that have drinking problems on there. And it sounded like, I think, I don't know what your opinion of the commentary was, Richie, but we had like Freddie Fittler sounded like he'd had a couple before he commentated our game. But there's the kind of what the comment from Simon without typos about the Nine and Fox presenters not been the most sober. Yeah, but they have some good insights, which I think is always good for learning about the insights. As someone who hasn't played NRL, I don't know the ins and outs. I can just pretend. But yeah, it's very good. And I actually give them credit for not shying away from the bad press stuff, actually getting out there. And it is you can kind of control your narrative before you let the rumor mills blow something out of proportion when it might not be as bad as what the Sydney Morning Herald portraying it as and things like that. So if you can control the narrative and get out on the front foot, you can probably squash some of the things. And Simon's just said there was a good video this week about the potential expansion teams in Brisbane and which team have the best case. Yeah, it's things like that because some of them understand the business side of things as well. So I did watch that one, and it was quite an interesting listen on things that happened. But there was a thing, I forgot to mention it earlier. One of the criteria the NRL have for this team in Brisbane is how are they going to lure new fans to the sport? And if that is what you want to do, I don't get why they aren't taking the team to a place like Perth, where you're not in Brisbane, you're not really going to get the new people. You're just going to get the people that have given up on that hopeless team called the Broncos. Where a place like Perth, New Zealand, I put more on the thing that's just people that have given up on that useless team called the Warriors and moving to a new team. But like those new markets where that is where you can get new viewers. So I don't understand that question in their interview process as such. And yeah, Simon's got the real reason, if you want to click that up. So the real reason is that AFL's investing a lot. So they're trying to fight with the AFL there. The AFL are moving into their territory. So by expanding the team numbers there, they can hopefully squash that out. Time will tell. It will only work if the new Brisbane team's successful. If the new Brisbane team comes in and they don't compete in the NRL, people aren't going to be interested.
It's a weird one.
At the end of the day, you've got to learn how you don't just get new fans by putting up new teams, right? Can help, but go away and look at your marketing and understand what other sports, such as Formula One, which has suddenly expanded its young generational or younger generation people who are watching it. They've gone away, they've researched what those people like, and they're producing the right kind of content. That's what they need to do. That's how you get your new fans, not just by putting a new team together. But yeah, those are the only questions from the live chat.
Cool. Well, you've got a pretty picture, Richie, so we may as well go with your one first. If Paul's got the picture ready for when you answer it. You asked me last week about my forward lineup for the Warriors in 2022. I'm flipping the script on you and asking you about the backs. Who would your backline be for the Warriors next season?
All right. So again, Brad, I appreciate you giving it to me ahead of time, so I had a bit of time to mull over it. But in the end, it didn't take a lot of thought for me. I think a lot of the positions picked themselves. So at fullback, I obviously want Reece Walsh, and there it is. One wing, Watene Zelezniak, and we've spent money on him, and so far he's been doing a pretty good job in my books. Montoya, I think he deserves to stay. He's been really consistent and really good, and runs hard, catches the high balls, just always seems to be doing the little things correctly. I think he deserves to stay there. The centres, this will interest Brad because I know he's not a fan of Pompey and the centres. I know he views him more of a winger, but with Hiku going, and I think he showed in the past couple of weeks, he can actually set up a winger if he decides to pass. So, a bit more work in that department. I think he'll actually be a decent centre to start off next year. And I've made it no secret before, I'm a fan of Rocco Berry, and I think he's a huge prospect for the future. He's a big lad, seems to have all the ball skills you want in a centre. So, I really want to see him getting a good run next year. And my halves, I'm looking at Harris Tavita and Sean Johnson. I think Harris Tavita, since coming back from injuries, looked really, he's looked sound. And I think with Sean Johnson there next year, it'll give him a lot of confidence just to, just do his role rather than worry about, I think SJ will take a lot of the kicking duties, and Sean Johnson's short kicking game's come a long way since he's gone to the Sharks, and he's really good nowadays at forcing set restarts, as he showed against us when he last played against us. And his last tackle options are really good. He's almost changed from a dangerous running half into a really quality organizer. So I think next year that's the back line I'm looking at running. With Sean Johnson back, I'd really like to have a look at Fusatua too. If he comes back next year and is looking in good shape, I think he has an existing partnership with Sean Johnson. So, but I think those two wingers there, based off what was seen on them later in the season, I think those two would be my two to start off on the wings next year. It's their spots to lose. What do you think, Brad?
Rubbish. Simon agrees with you. He says that's not a bad team. I'm going to be careful here because I'm still trying to find out if it's actually him. But Adam Pompey followed me on Instagram today. But I'm trying to find out if it looks like it's actually him.
So watch what you say about him, Brad.
So I'm going to watch what I say, but he's rubbish. No, I think he's very good. He just needs to learn how to pass. If he can bring a passing game, I'm perfectly fine having him at centre. Rocco Berry is a shoe-in for me. I'd basically have that whole team. It's just like you said, Fusatua, I feel, will make his way back in. Yeah. That combination with Sean Johnson. But where he goes, I don't like him at centre. So I'd be the one. I would either have.
We have Aiken. Yeah,
we do have Aiken. Aiken's a second rower though, so
that's what I think too.
Staying.
Which is why I put Pompey there.
So I'd have Pompey / Montoya there, possibly with Fuss on the wing, depending on how Fuss is. But if the Warriors announce that team that you've got there, I wouldn't be complaining until after the game when Pompey doesn't pass the ball and costs us a game.
Montoya does cover centre really well, and that would allow Fusatua in there. But I just really like what Montoya's been doing on the wing.
I agree.
So, and Aiken could go centre, but I really like what he's been doing second row, and I think, I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah, and Pompey, if it is you that actually followed me and you are watching this, I will be back in your good books as long as you learn how to pass. You did it in the game against the Broncos. You did a pass that led to a try. Do it a couple more times. Just one or two. We don't need another Solomon Carter. So I'm asking. Thank you. Thank you for my TED Talk. We may as well go into your question now. For me.
Sure. So we reserved a bit of chat for David Fifita. So in my estimation, watching him this year, Titans bought him on big money. It looks like maybe he's been worth that money in about a quarter of the games so far this season. That's my view. So I want your view, Brad. Do you think he's been worth the big money from the Titans so far? Will he be a good investment in the long run, or is it a case of that's huge money for a guy out on the edge and he's relying a lot on other people to get him the ball? What are your thoughts?
Massive waste of money. Again, as I've shown so much on this show since we started it back in the day, Paul, I don't know much. And I rubbished the Broncos when they prioritized signing Payne Haas instead of David Fifita, saying they were idiots for letting David Fifita go. I think they have shown they've let a lot of good players go, but I think they picked the right one to keep out of those two. They were never going to keep both. Payne Haas, I think, is a lot more value for money. And the Titans, I think, should be asking for some money back from David. I think he's really not lived up to it. He's playing in moments, as you said. I think realistically, if you're taking your eyes off what you're getting delivered, he's like a $500-600 a year player, which is still a lot of money, but he's not $1 million player. We've been talking past couple of weeks on what is $1 million player, and you're looking at Tommy Turbo, Nathan Cleary. David Fifita is not delivering for the Titans what Cleary and Tommy Turbo are delivering for their teams. So I don't know what he needs to change in his game to get him to that level to make him worth what he's getting paid. But it's consistency. He needs to, Cleary and Tommy Turbo, like everyone talked about the Manly Seagulls versus Melbourne game, how Melbourne kept Tommy Turbo contained and they shut him out of the game. He still set up 3 tries and ran for like 100 meters. He still had what he would class as a great game. But that, in Melbourne's eyes, was shutting him down. David Fifita, when you shut him down, you don't even know he's there. It's just a contrast, and he really needs to deliver. It's a result-based economy, the NRL. You get this $1 million now. When your next contract's up, if you haven't delivered, you're not getting paid that again. Look at Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson was like that $1 million a year player. He's getting paid almost effectively minimum wage in the NRL to come back to New Zealand. And Ash Taylor was $1 million a year player, and now there's rumors that he's not even going to get picked up, and if he does, it's going to be for $200K, and that's only because again the Titans overpaid him for what he's actually worth to make sure he stayed, and he hasn't lived up to that price tag, which is why he's not getting it. It'll be much like the Reece Walsh situation. When he comes off contract, we're going to see what he's worth for what people are going to pay him. I think most teams are going to pay him overs to try to steal him away, but he is that kind of player that can probably live up to that price tag. So that's like a 20-minute conversation to say no.
I think that some of the key things that you brought up there, Brad, when you're comparing them to some of the other players that command that money, they're players that get their hands on the ball a lot. You Nathan Cleary's who touch the ball every set, multiple times every set throughout the game, and they're controlling the outcome of the game through their influence. David Feed is just not that sort of guy, and he's an edge forward. That's why I think that that kind of money for an edge forward is really strange, because he is reliant on some of those halves and playmakers putting them into the right spots. And I think he'll look like he's worth $1 million when he comes up against bottom 4 teams. But you throw him up against the top 4 team and look what he produces.
Yeah, you want your $1 million a year player to make you competitive against the Melbournes, the Penriths, not just look substandard against them, which is, admittedly, that's what he looks like at the moment. And, he's on the edge, which limits him getting the ball all the time. But if I've got David Fifita in my team, I'd be making sure I get him the bloody ball. It's like you see with the Warriors, they always make sure that Adam Fanua-Black gets the ball. It's a middle forward, so it's a bit more you want him to start it. But you think of the Cacao with the Penrith team, they're always making sure that he's getting the ball and things like that. So if you're paying all that money and you've got a guy that can score great tries carrying half a team on his back, give him the ball, and then ask him why he's not asking for the ball.
Good point.
Yeah, I guess. But that was a great question that I mumbled over. So thank you, and thank you for putting effort into your question, or your answer, I should say. And we'll get into our round 24 picks. It looks like, looking at the time, we're going to have to bypass Super League again because we're going deep. As we seem to do. It is still happening. I'll quickly run over some of the news there because there was some interesting news this week. But Thursday, we've got the Knights versus the Titans. I've gone with the Titans because, I know the Knights look good, but I think the Titans will really want to push for that top 8 spot. So I'm going with them.
Brad, I think you'll find a lot of my picks this week are going to be trying to peg you back. That's the competitive bastard in me. I don't want to go down without a fight. So I've gone the opposite of you here. I went the Knights. It's a toss of the coin game, but I picked the opposite of you.
Yeah, I must say, in your defense, that I'm looking at your picks here, the 3 picks that we have different, I can see you getting right just as much as I can see me getting right. So it's nothing too silly, except for the next one, which is the Warriors versus Raiders. I've gone with the Warriors, and you've gone with the Raiders. Can you explain why?
Yeah,
You
I want to go
traitor.
with the Warriors.
You traitor.
I actually think the Warriors have a better chance in this game than the Raiders. I feel like it's 60-40 in our favour, especially getting Matt Lodge back. I really want to beat you in the tips, so I went Raiders.
It's going to be interesting because the Warriors have shown that they're slow starters.
Yeah.
But they turn it up in the second half, and the Raiders are good starters and they fade in the second half. So it's a real interesting mix. So yeah, either team I think could come out of this. But yeah, I'm going with the Lodge factor. I think they're going to get the edge in the forwards. And hopefully I get that one right compared to you, not just for my tips, but as a Warriors fan.
Yeah, I'll take that one.
The next game we've both agreed on, which is the Roosters Rabbitohs. I've picked the Rabbitohs here. Just think the Roosters have looked good, but I think the Rabbitohs will be looking to make a statement after their defeat last week.
Yeah, I can see the Rabbitohs getting this one done. They'll feel a bit hard done by after the weekend just gone. Roosters, as good as they've been, they picked up more injuries again on the weekend. So I think you've got one guy in Tedesco playing out of his skin, but with the Rabbitohs, you've got a number of guys, like first choice guys that are really performing. So I think the Rabbitohs will get that one.
And yeah, Simon said he can see the Raiders beating the Warriors, but can't see them beating the Roosters. I'm not taking that on board because you're a Raiders fan and you're being biased here. As a Warriors fan, I see no other option but the Warriors winning that one. But yeah, it's the Roosters. Yeah, I don't see the Raiders beating the Roosters next week as a spoiler for my pick for next week. First game on Saturday, we've got Dragons-Cowboys. I've gone with the Dragons as much as it hurts me to do so. But I think the Cowboys, as I said about the review, losing's habit forming, and I don't pick them winning another game this year.
I agree. I think they've been really poor. Both of these teams haven't been setting the world on fire lately, but I learnt my lesson a couple of weeks ago tipping the Cowboys to beat West Tigers. So I'm not going to tip them again for the rest of the year. So I've gone Dragons.
And then the next game, which is the last game we have different, we've got the Sharks-Broncos. I've gone with the Sharks. I liked what I saw out of the Sharks. It was a bit scratchy. And I think the Broncos, as much as I just said they could upset both teams they got left, they might have got the last bit of oomph of performing well out against the Warriors. So that's what I'm betting on here. But you've gone the other way. So why do you think the Broncos are going to win?
Well, I think last time these two teams played, the Broncos really put it up them as well. And I think the Broncos don't mind playing the Sharks. I think they really want to play spoilers right now. And yeah, again, I've gone the opposite way that you did, mate. I think any game this week I've seen a chance to go against you that might come off. I've gone that way. So let's go Broncos.
Yeah, I think those 3 games are a flip of the coin because it depends what team shows up. But the last 3 games I think are quite easy to pick. We've got Melbourne versus Parramatta. I think Melbourne will wipe the floor with them.
Yeah, I think so. On form, they look a different league right now to the Eels. And
then the first game on Sunday, we got Manly versus Bulldogs. Again, it will be a drubbing. It will a smashing. It will be scary to watch, I think, because Manly are just at another level compared to the Wooden Spoon team.
And it was last time these two teams played too. So, different planets, these two sides right now. By how much?
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. That's all. I think it'll be by a lot too.
By a lot, yeah. And then that gives us the last game, which is the Panthers versus Tigers. And I think rinse and repeat of what we just said about the last 2 games. I think Tigers didn't look great last week, and I think the Panthers are going to really enjoy having a team this low on the ladder to face, and will probably put a 40-50 on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, look like different planets in terms of class, and I think the Panthers will easily win the battle of the big cats in this one.
Yeah, and before we move on, Simon's picks. We've got Simon picked the Titans by 4. Warriors and Raiders, he's nailed as a draw. Rabbitohs by 4. Dragons by 4. Sharks by 4. Storm by 14. Seagulls by 20. And Panthers by 24. So he's got a little bit more faith in those little teams than we do. And a bold call with the draw. It'll be, I don't know if my heart could take a draw.
Not a bad call. Not a bad call. I see that being a close game. That goes to Golden Point. Do you see Reece Walsh slipping back into the pocket to redeem himself from last week?
He will, and then all those horrible people that have been ripping him to shreds will be kissing the ground he walks on again. As the joys of being a Warriors fan can be. So yeah, that's our picks. So we got 3 games different. The Knights, Titans, Warriors, Raiders, and Sharks, Broncos. So if you nail all 3, you get ahead again. I feel that you're going to get 2 of them right, and we're going to be drawn up again with 1 round to go.
Wouldn't surprise me.
But you do have a chance of redemption, because when the finals start, we start our tips from scratch again. So you will have a chance of coming back there potentially.
Nice.
But yeah, I won't go over the Super League results, but there was some interesting news. So I'll just cover that before we sign off, because yeah, we're going an hour and a half. So Warrington and Catalan's game this week was postponed due to COVID. Seems to be the story I say every week. But 4 members of the Catalan staff actually tested positive. So that game was postponed. And kind of on the side of that, Castleford, Huddersfield and Salford have all been fined by the UK Rugby Football League for breaching operational rules. This was due to the clubs, I've got it here, failing to fulfill league matches this season and breaking COVID protocols. The fines, they had individual fines for each thing, but I kind of rounded them up. Each team's basically being fined between 80 and £100,000 for it, which is sad to see, but it's meant to happen. Catalans are still well ahead of everyone on the table with 32 points. And Lee, as Simon's put on here, Lee got their first win of the season. They defeated Salford. So it kind of sucks that they had to wait to almost the end of the year. But they got a win finally. Yeah, that was really all I had. I was going to go over the results, but it's interesting. The next 2 rounds, we've got everyone playing on the 25th and the 26th for round 21, and then round 22 actually starts 4 days later on the 30th. So there will actually be 2 rounds before we are next on. Hopefully, we actually get some time. If Richard shows up on time next week and we can start a bit early, we might actually be able to cover some of those games too. So apologies to those of you out there that like watching the Super League that we haven't had as much time to talk about, but hopefully we'll get some of that. With playoffs coming up with less games happening, we'll get more time for that too, which will be good. But anything else you want to add, Richie, before we go?
Oh, no. As always, thanks, Brad, for being your wonderful chatty self and filling the void when I was experiencing technical difficulties. Thanks for the commenters throwing your knowledge in. Love it. Keep it up, and hope to see you guys next week.
Definitely. And thank you, Paul, for jumping in at the start when Richard was late. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in tonight and joining us on Standoff with Brad and Richie. For your weekly update on rugby league, tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. And thank you and good night.